The famous Johnathan Taylor Thomas is the man we're going to talk about today. He was the face of sitcoms in the 1990s and broke the hearts of both girls and guys. This home improvement star went through a terrible thing, and we're going to tell you why it was so sad. Hold on, let's start right away. Fans loved the star from old TV, but he had to deal with unbelievable problems his whole life. Let's begin with the very beginning of his life, and find out what it was about him that caused his sad death. Johnathan Taylor Thomas was born in Pennsylvania on September 8, 1981. Stephen Weiss and Claudine Goncalves had 2 children. Before his family moved to California, he had a very good, calm, and safe life. Thomas was only 4 years old at the time, but they had to move in order to find a better life in the future. Moving changed a lot of things for the family and for Johnathan, who was also young at the time. We're here to talk about the loss, so why are we talking about moving? You will soon find out that they are all linked. We'll talk about that again later, but did you know that a few decades ago, it was seen as very bad for a child to grow up with only one parent? That's better than what Johnathan Taylor Thomas is doing, right? Because of bad luck and things that happened in his life, his happy life turned into a one-parent home. His parents' divorce was a big deal that it really upset him. Even after he was grown, he rarely talked about it in depth. It looked like the 4-year-old boy was carrying a lot of weight, but he did it like he was an adult. He kept this fire going and used it to improve his skills. This fire could get out of hand one day and burn him up inside. Anyway, let's talk about his early life for now. When the perfect family got settled into their new life in Sacramento, they saw a chance, and that chance was Thomas. His parents didn't miss a chance to see his promise because he was good at imitating people and acting, so they didn't waste any time. They looked into jobs in the show business where the star of the family could shine. Johnathan was such a cute and pretty kid that he was sure to do well in the business, and it did not let him down at all. He started to model and be in ads, which were like sending his resume to big-name actors. Being able to draw people and made him stand out from other kids' actors, and it was during this time that he was breaking out and getting drunk on fame. His family, which seemed perfect at first, started to show signs of wear. His most famous part was as Randy Taylor on the hit sitcom Home Improvement, which he got in 1991. This part shot him right to the top of fame and wealth, like a gun. In fact, he became so well known that people talked about him on the show as if Randy were a member of their own family. At this point, nothing could have gone wrong. Right? When we told you that his parents' relationship was getting worse, we meant it. All the fame and money in the world couldn't fix it, and their relationship was lost. Johnathan had a terrible day every day, but he couldn't say anything because he had to be happy and funny on the show. It didn't matter how much he tried to save their relationship in the end. His parents split up. Being mean to a little kid who didn't have anything left was terrible. Not many people think about the fact that he was the first person in his family to ever be this successful, and no one was home to help him. He had to deal with the demands of millions of people and the terrible state of his house without showing any signs of weakness. People get hurt by things like this. We forget that artists and TV stars are people too, and they need something to hold on to too. Have some compassion and kindness. However, where in the mean world of Hollywood can you get such pricey things for free? He wanted to pay attention to his life in some way. After his parents' breakup, he and his younger brother went to Los Angeles with their mother. This time, it changed the young actor's life even more. The quiet neighborhood of Sacramento had turned into the notoriously loud and crowded streets of Los Angeles. Before this, Johnathan had never been professionally trained before. He went on to become one of the most famous sitcom actors of the 1990s. Things were going well, but Thomas slowly began to realize that things would not be all fun and games, even though he was successful and had a lot of friends who loved him. It was because by the middle of the 1990s, Hollywood's traditions and one frame began to lose their attraction. Thomas talked about his problems with the acting business in an interview with Premiere Magazine in 1996. He said, "You can't be stuck in this bubble called the acting industry. It's neurotic and weird. When I go home and play basketball with my friends, I'm not Johnathan Taylor Thomas, I'm just Johnathan. I don't like hanging out with other actors and actresses." This made a lot of people in Hollywood shake. He hurt a lot of people he shouldn't have, which was wrong. When he turned down the A-list lifestyle of Hollywood, he didn't just vent his anger. Some of his co-workers were making a scene to get attention, which made things very strange. He stayed out of the spotlight because he found it all boring at that point. In a huge difference to his peers, Johnathan was playing basketball with his friends while they were busy getting covered in glitter. Hollywood doesn't care about kids' mental health or any of its moral duties. It only cares about making money. There are a lot of examples of young people ruining their lives through ads in Hollywood, which makes it one of the cruelest businesses in the world. How did Johnathan get there? Did he fail like so many others in Hollywood, or did he do something more? Let's find out. Laws were changed to protect kid actors after many cases of them hurting themselves. Now, there were strict rules about child playing that were made to keep the kids safe. Because of them, limits on working hours and having to go to school became common. Now, Hollywood couldn't use them for their own gain. Greed has no limits, so even these safety measures couldn't fully protect young players from the stress and demands of the job. Johnathan Taylor was another person who had to follow these rules and laws for child players. Even though it helped him a lot, it was still too much for him to handle. He made that clear in an early interview with People magazine, in which Thomas said he worked on the set for 9.5 hours every day. And it was this routine that took away his chance to have a carefree childhood. Thomas was good at it because he knew he couldn't have a normal life. He learned how to balance school, friends, and his acting job very well. As he always said, your school friends are finding out your lies and making sure you're up to speed. He had spent his whole life learning how to put on amazing shows on stage. But these amazing things were taking over him slowly. It was hard for him to keep to his plans, which made him sick while he was on the show. And there were many times when he talked about how he used to work even though he had splitting migraines. Even he didn't know he had it until a long time had passed because the signs were so different among people who had it. He did this because he had been dealing with stress, pressure, and expectations for a long time. That he had no idea what a healthy body should feel like. We'd like to let people know that migraines are more than just really bad headaches. Because they are so bad, people usually feel sick, have trouble seeing, and become more sensitive to light and sound afterward. Because of this, a lot of famous people today, like Billie Eilish, are also touched by these things. It's hard to think about working so hard in front of people who are bad for you. People watching on TV thought that these famous people had easy lives while he was going through all of those problems by himself. In the 1990s, Johnathan Taylor Thomas lived his life like he was the best hairdresser. As with most current celebrities, like Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, he was the center of crazy media attention. No one knew how hard he was working on it. There were times when the cameras would follow him to the bathroom to get a story. So, what would be the best story about a star who was younger than 18? For love. What kind of love did they get from him and his sister? He made things interesting for the press. Let's find out. Thomas found himself in the spotlight, whether he wanted to be or not. Fans and the media were very interested in the stories about his personal life. Every girl he looked at turned into a suspect, and the girls he looked at became his followers. If there was any gossip about celebs, it sold like hotcakes that no one could even smell it. That was the height of tabloids. Other famous people, and people with a lot of media power like this kind of thing, but Johnathan was already trying to avoid notice. If he didn't want word of these affairs to get out, how did we get it? It was all because of a big event that happened on Thomas's 1998 interview on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. We all know Jay Leno for being honest and having the ability to make people spill their tea. He did just that in front of Johnathan by talking about the reports that he and Thomas were seeing each other. It was hard to beat Johnathan, but Leno was also a strange player in this game. He asked Thomas straight out, "Do you really swing that way?" He asked him if it worried him when people thought he was gay, but he showed that he wasn't simple to trick, and Leno needed more work. He just brushed off the question with a shrug, and when Leno tried to get more personal, Johnathan said it was all about Hollywood. Stories like these were sure to spread quickly. But Leno, being a coward who wanted to go home empty-handed, asked him straight out if he was gay. The news was shocked by what Johnathan said next, and hurt Leno's portfolio because Thomas laughed and told Leno, "No, I'm not." People started telling Leno he was wrong to say things like, "Oh, a teenager who was working so hard at such a young age still, the question stayed, was he gay?" Thomas had a very different view on media coverage than most people because of all of these things. His friends were basking in success, but he was there fighting it. It's not like he wasn't thankful or anything. He knew that their love and support had helped him get this far, and he was grateful for that. Haters and reporters were always there for him, though, and it was eating him up from the inside. Thomas told the New York Times how hard it is for him to meet everyone's standards of him. He told them that you are a part of their life. They helped him become the person he is today, so he thinks that the reason he does what he does is not to make money, but to please the people who were important in his life. During his best years, Thomas was so famous that he had a cult-like following. It didn't matter to these people how they met their heroes. People called his fans crazy because they went so crazy. They would do anything to get a look at him. They would only need a hint about when he was filming, and they would even go to remote areas where he was filming. This level of passion was like a sign of how great he was, but he told his fans to stop doing it because he loved them so much. Celebrities today are more famous than him, like Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. But as much as he loved and respected them, what they did made him more careful about his privacy. It's possible that these fans lost him for good because of what they did to get close to him. He had enough. He was always on the lookout for reporters and run away from the fans. He also couldn't love someone without putting them in the spotlight, which made him crazy. So he took a break until 2013. Thomas hadn't been seen or heard much in the show business. People began to say that his fame after being on Home Improvement in 1999 was only temporary and not the start of a long-lasting career because of this 10-year break. Thomas didn't care. At the same time, he shocked everyone by not doing drugs on his couch like other famous people did during this decade. He made good use of this time and worked on schoolwork instead of playing. He started going to Harvard University and said goodbye to Hollywood and the show business. He kept studying and went to St. Andrews University in Scotland for 2 years. It's interesting to note that Prince William went to the same elite school. His friends thought he had given up show business and was now focusing on acting full-time because of this. You can't act if you can't make people laugh or cry. And Thomas did just that when he shocked everyone by coming back in 2013. It had been almost 15 years since his last big movie part. And to mark his return, he made a surprise showing in Last Man Standing. It was a show with Tim Allen, who used to work with him on Home Improvement. Many fans cried tears of joy because it showed that Thomas hadn't forgotten his great days and was still in touch with old friends. We learned from Tim Allen that Thomas's return to acting was due to his desire to become a director. Thomas had been watching John Pasquin, the show's director, work to learn more about being a director. But Allen told Thomas how great he was as an actor, so Thomas had to do it. Allen also talked about how his longtime friend had changed. When they were young, their friend was very sure of himself when learning, but now he was more shy and nervous on set. It was clear that his fans wanted to see more of him. They were ready to go back to the time when they drove for days on end just to see him. That they would be able to watch him on TV again made them very happy. If not, they would still see some of his work as a director. Everyone was fired up and thrilled, but Johnathan, being the surprise, put out the fire. He said he wasn't going to do any of them because he had already seen them. He deserved his term 2 years ago. Thomas told the people in 2011 what he wanted to do, and they wouldn't like it. In the end, he said, "I think I'd like to work behind the camera." He doesn't really mean that he wants to become a director and make movies and TV shows. He meant that he would try new things at jobs that had nothing to do with acting. A lot of his friends were upset and let down by this. Johnathan Taylor Thomas is 42 years old now, and his net worth is thought to be $12 million. It's sad to think that the thing that made him famous and loved by so many people around the world was also what destroyed his life. His lack of love is so sad because he had money and fame, but he couldn't enjoy them like everyone else. It was kind of like making a deal with the devil. He gave up the good times of his childhood in exchange for love and fans who would never leave him. Do you guys think it was a good idea for him to stop acting for a while? Or was this just another mistake or bad luck in his life? Please tell us in the comments.